At this point, we don't believe there are any survivors from this accident, and we have recovered 27 people from the plane and 1 from the helicopter.
District of Columbia Fire Rescue Chief John Donnelly earlier this morning. Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Thursday, January 30th, 2025. A solemn day across the country as we learn more about and process the tragedy that took place in the nation's capital last night. By now, you know an American Airlines regional flight under the PSA Airlines moniker from Wichita, Kansas to Reagan National Airport collided midair with a military helicopter just after 9 o'clock Eastern last night. 60 passengers, 4 crew members on board the jet. 3 U.S. soldiers were in the Black Hawk chopper. U.S. figure skating releasing a statement saying members of the figure skating community were on board the aircraft, and a Russian news agency said 2 world champion Russian figure skaters were on the plane as well. At the time of this recording, Reagan National Airport, just outside of D.C., was still closed, expected to be closed for some time. Roughly 900 flights around the country have been canceled, and more than 1,000 delays, maybe 2,000 by now, being reported by airline tracking service FlightAware. So be aware of that if you are flying anywhere today. If you were up late watching coverage on Newsmax, there were reports that 3 people had been rescued. This was late last night. Multiple networks were reporting that there were 3 survivors. I was hoping that number would be higher when I woke up this morning. But as you heard from Chief Donnelly, there are no survivors. Word of the crash came in during Greg Kelly's show last night. Greg is a licensed commercial pilot and a former U.S. Marine pilot as well. This is from his coverage last night with former FAA Deputy Administrator Dan Elwell and retired General Blaine Holt, also a pilot.
You emphasize runway 33. That means that the aircraft was approaching from the south, and I do remember that approach myself, where you're kind of a beam Alexandria for quite a bit. It's not the Monument approach, if they call it the Monument approach, where you come in, you make that right turn basically over the Lincoln Memorial. This is the other side of the airport, correct?
Right. So this is a north operation. The larger aircraft would be landing on runway 01, which it goes with the compass, right? So 10 degrees north of, it's 10 degrees east of due north. 33 is a northwest-oriented runway. It's a pilot's approach because you come up, you're heading due north, and you're hugging the Maryland shore, the Maryland side of the base there on the Maryland side of the river until it's time to make your turn. And it's kind of a fun approach. A little bit more challenging probably at night than at day. Yeah.
And actually at night or at day, and for you too, General, it's these are VFR flight rules often, even though it's highly restricted airspace and you need a permission and almost even a reservation sometimes to fly into these spaces. Once you're in them, you have a responsibility. It's not like you are under positive control the entire time, and where controllers would be, say, they might alert you, warn you about traffic, but they're not necessarily steering that helicopter, giving them headings and that kind of thing. There is latitude for a helicopter pilot, certainly of a Black Hawk, who would be flying some paramilitary mission, we presume, where they could go, how they could go. That's kind of up to the pilot within certain restrictions, correct?
Total weather conditions, see and avoid, meaning see with your eyeballs, not your instruments. See and avoid is always going to be the top rule. And so the helicopters do fly what we call VFR, or visual flight rules. And they're so you have the CRJ that's in a landing configuration about to land, and you've got the helo, which is just flying, no intent to land. That means the helo is more maneuverable. And that means that helo has the responsibility to make sure that he or she keeps their craft clear of any traffic obstructions that Reagan is facing. That's why it absolutely just confounds me how we could get to this place, because every single pilot that straps a Black Hawk to their butt knows that that's Ronald Reagan Airport, and it's an extremely busy airport. It's not a Sleepy Hollow. There's a landing there every 4 minutes. So again, I think there's a revelation out there for us to learn about how this could have possibly happened. I think there's an aha moment, but it's going to take NTSB. And like I said, speed is of the essence because of what we don't know.
That's retired Brigadier General Blaine Holt on Greg Kelly Reports last night. This is Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser in a news conference this morning with President Trump's pick for Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, who was just sworn in on Tuesday.
Good morning. I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C. We are here at Reagan National Airport to provide an update on the tragic events of last night. I'm joined by U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, D.C. Fire and EMS Chief John Donnelly, American Airlines CEO Robert Eisen, the MWA, the Washington Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority CEO Jack Carter, United States Senator Mark Warner, United States Senator Tim Kaine, U.S. Representative Don Beyer, as well as the Chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, Pamela Smith. and we are joined by first responders from across the metropolitan Washington region. I speak for all of us when I say, and certainly all Washingtonians, how very sad we are for American Airlines, for the United States Department of Defense, and for all Americans for the loss of life that happened with the collision of these aircrafts. We know that includes families from across our region as well as in Kansas and across the country. This morning we all share in a profound sense of grief. I do want to thank the first responders who acted quickly last night, who ran towards danger, went into a very frigid river, and have worked throughout the night. Chief Donnelly reported in last night's briefing that we have a strong mutual aid agreement in our region, and those teams have worked together throughout the night in really tough and heartbreaking conditions, and we should all thank them for their heroic efforts. So we'll have several updates today. I'm first going to turn to the Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, and then you will hear directly from Chief John Donnelly with a situational update.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, Sean Duffy here, Secretary of Transportation. We wish we were gathering for different purposes today. I just want to let you know that the Department of Transportation, the FAA, along with the White House, President Trump, local, state, and federal partners all working together on this incident in unison. I couldn't be prouder of this team that's been assembled, working tirelessly. Mayor, I want to thank you specifically for your work. A few details I'd like to give all of you, and some of you reported this, but last night, if you live in the D.C. area, you would know that this was a clear night last night. The helicopter was in a standard pattern. If you live in the D.C. area, you'll see helicopters up and down the river. This flight pattern is seen oftentimes when you live in D.C. This was a standard flight pattern last night as well. The American Airlines flight coming into land was in a standard flight pattern as it was coming into DCA. So this was not unusual with a military aircraft flying the river and aircraft landing at DCA. And again, if you live in the area, you'll see that frequently with those two aircraft working together. As many of you have reported, we have located the two aircrafts. The fuselage of the American Airlines plane was inverted. It's been located in 3 different sections. It's in about waist-deep water, so that recovery is going to go on today as that recovery takes place of the fuselage of the aircraft. NTSB is going to start to analyze that aircraft, partner with the FAA with all of the information we have to get the best results possible for the American people. I would just say that safety is our expectation. Everyone who flies in American skies expects that we fly safely, that when you depart an airport, you get to your destination. That didn't happen last night. And I know that President Trump, his administration, the FAA, the DOT, we will not rest until we have answers for the families and for the flying public. You should be assured that when you fly, you're safe. Thank you.
Newly appointed Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy, a former congressman, as I mentioned, sworn in only 2 days ago. Otherwise, Pete Buttigieg would be attempting to handle this. Our new Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, announced that the Pentagon and U.S. Army have launched an immediate investigation into the crash. Senators of Virginia, including Tim Kaine, where Reagan National Airport actually is, and senators of Kansas, where the flight originated from, have all released statements, and some have made statements Senators are expected back on Capitol Hill today to continue confirmation hearings for President Trump's cabinet picks, including Health and Human Services nominee RFK Jr., Director of National Intelligence nominee Tulsi Gabbard, and FBI Director nominee Kash Patel, who will be asked over and over and over about Trump's so-called enemies list and going after political enemies. Meanwhile, this is RFK Jr. in yesterday's hearing.
I am pro-safety. I worked for years to raise awareness about the mercury and toxic chemicals in fish, and nobody called me anti-fish. And I believe that that vaccines play a critical role in healthcare. All of my kids are vaccinated. I've written many books on vaccines. My first book in 2014, the first line of it is, I am not anti-vaccine, and the last line is, I am not anti-vaccine. Nor am I the enemy of food producers. American farms are the bedrock of our culture, of our politics, of our national security. I was a 4-H kid, and I spent my summer working on ranches. I went to work with our farmers. I want to work with our farmers and food producers to remove burdensome regulations and unleash American ingenuity. MAHA simply cannot succeed without a partnership, a full partnership of American farmers. In my advocacy, I've often disturbed the status quo by asking uncomfortable questions. Well, I'm not going to apologize for that. We have massive health problems in this country that we must face honestly. And the first thing I've done every morning for the past 20 years is to get on my knees and pray to God that he would put me in a position to end the chronic disease epidemic and to help America's children. That's why I'm so grateful to President Trump for the opportunity to sit before you today and seek your support and partnership in this endeavor. I will conclude with a promise. The members of this committee, to the president, and to all the tens of millions of parents across America, especially the moms, who have propelled this issue to center stage. Should I be so privileged as to be confirmed, we will make sure our tax dollars support healthy foods. We will scrutinize the chemical additives in our food supply. We will remove financial conflicts of interest from our agencies. We will create an honest, unbiased, gold standard science at HHS, accountable to the president, to Congress, and to the American people. We will reverse the chronic disease epidemic and put the nation back on the road to good health. Thank you.
That was the last 2.5 minutes of his 8-minute or so opening statement. Let's go to radical left Democrat Senator Bernie Sanders, who wanted to know what Kennedy thinks about climate change.
I happen to believe that climate change is real, it's an existential threat, and it is a healthcare issue. Donald Trump thinks that it is a hoax originating in China. Question is, in your judgment, is climate change a hoax, or is it real, causing devastating problems?
President Trump and I, from the beginning, from our first meeting, agreed to disagree on that issue. I believe climate change is existential. My job is to make Americans healthy again.
All right, you believe that you think that you disagree with Trump, you don't think climate change is a hoax, is what I'm hearing.
My job here is to make
just ask you that, Mr. Kennedy, not a trick question.
I answered your question, Senator Sanders.
Okay, you disagree with the president on that.
I answered your question.
Okay. I'm going to pick up on a point that Senator Hassan made. Look, there is no question that abortion is a divisive issue in this country. I would say a majority of the people are pro-choice. There's a strong minority who are pro-life. A year and a half ago, you went to New Hampshire, running for president, gave a speech, and you talked about government should not tell a woman what she can do with her own body. That's her choice. Now, I think everybody on that side is pro-life. I think everybody here is pro-choice. I have never seen any major politician flip on that issue quite as quickly as you did when Trump asked you to become HHS secretary. Tell me why you think people should have confidence in your consistency and in your word when you really made a major U-turn on an issue of that importance in such a short time.
Senator, I believe, and I've always believed, that every abortion is a tragedy.
Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders in yesterday's Senate confirmation hearing. You can expect more of the same today, and I expect things to get a lot more contentious with Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel. Not only because of the positions they're being nominated for, but also because of their personalities, right? I feel like we're going to see a lot more fireworks. And again, you'll be hearing all over the place and even reading, they've been grilled. They're getting grilled. They're in a hot seat. As for President Trump, he signed the Laken Riley Act into law yesterday as the first law of his new administration. Isn't that simply incredible? If you listen to the podcast on a regular basis, as you should, so you know what the heck is happening, you may remember when the law was passed in the Senate a few weeks ago on Laken Riley's birthday. Amazing. I said, call it fate or whatever, but it's amazing how things work out sometimes because it was her birthday, right? And I said it could very well be the first law of the new Trump administration. And how amazing would that be? And that is exactly what happened. Strange, ironic, fate, whatever you want to call it. The very first law signed into law in the second Trump administration, the Laken Riley Act. And how about the Menendez sentencing? Wow. Not the Menendez brothers. Democratic Senator Bob Menendez, sentenced to 11 years in prison on bribery. You remember the gold, the Mercedes for his wife, the vacations, all of that? Rob Finnerty spoke about all of the above with Louisiana Senator John Kennedy on Finnerty last night.
I'm a Republican. When the president is a member of my own party, as is the case with President Trump, there's a presumption in favor of the president's nominees. I think the same thing works when the Democrats are in charge. Having said that, for those senators who don't know the nominees, some of the nominees I do know. Russ Vought, for example. I know Russ well.
Right.
So that's an easy decision. But I don't know Mr. Kennedy. And these confirmation hearings matter. You know, if a senator goes into a hearing, Rob, and acts like or if a nominee goes into a meeting and, I don't know, acts like a meathead or is arrogant and acts like he's discovered gravity or refuses to answer your questions, it can impact a nominee's chances.
Yeah.
But I thought Mr. Kennedy had a very good day, and he's got another hearing, I think, next week.
Yeah, we've got Tulsi Gabbard this week, Kash Patel, RFK today. Do you expect Bobby Kennedy to get any Democrat votes like John Fetterman, maybe Bernie Sanders? I mean, this guy is a Kennedy after all. Do you think this final vote will be close?
I don't think any Democrats will vote for him. I mean, I can't predict the future. I have to wait for it like everybody else. But based on the questions that my Democratic colleagues asked today, I'll be very surprised if he gets any Democratic votes.
Senator, just want to ask you a question about your colleague on the left. Senator Bob Menendez was formally sentenced to 11 years behind bars this afternoon. Your reaction to that?
I think justice was done. It breaks my heart. You know, what a waste of talent. But Mr. Menendez was convicted by a jury of his peers. The evidence was overwhelming. Doesn't give me any joy to say that, because when a senator does something that's wrong or illegal, it undermines the confidence of the American people in the Senate as an institution. Having said that, I'm proud of my criminal justice system. I think justice was done.
Okay, I want to ask you about the Laken Riley Act. President Trump signed that into law this afternoon. 12 Democrats voted for this bill, but that means that 35 of your colleagues on the other side of the aisle voted against it. Can you explain that? Do you understand why they would vote against something like this?
No, I can't. It's like trying to explain love or the Holy Spirit. I can't.
Right.
I noticed the same vote that you did. I can't imagine why any fair-minded person who believes in security of our borders would not have voted for this bill. 35 voted against it. In my personal opinion, this is not a personal comment. It's an observation about the vote. I thought it was exquisitely dumb on their part, but it's their right. In America, you know, you're free. If you're a senator, you have the right to vote as you choose.
Yeah, a head scratcher, I think, for a lot of people watching right now. That seems like, again, common sense. Louisiana Senator John Kennedy, great to see you. Thanks so much for being with us tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks for having me.
The always informative and entertaining Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. No relation, by the way, to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. or Sr. or that Kennedy family. President Trump signed an executive order yesterday that would allow for more school choice and said he'll be signing an executive order to send the worst of the illegals in the United States, the most dangerous, to Guantanamo Bay. On Wall Street this morning, stocks opened in the green despite the tragedy in D.C. and the latest GDP reading that showed the economy growing at 2.3% in the last quarter of 2024. That was less than the 2.5% expected by economists. The full year GDP was 2.8%, down from 2023's 2.9%. Just for some context, back in 2018, for example, when Trump had things humming, the GDP was 5.2%. And I'll leave you with this comment from Wichita, Kansas Mayor Lily Wu on the plane crash in D.C.
We mourn with all those who have been impacted. This is a terrible tragedy that will unite those in Washington, D.C. and Wichita, Kansas forever.
Newsmax will have all the news conferences and updates throughout the day, as well as all the happenings on Capitol Hill. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Newsmax Daily. Continue to share it with friends, family, and anybody else. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already on whatever podcast platform you listen to. Stay positive, make the most out of the rest of the day, and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.